Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Sarah Ross. I'm the program manager at Erie County Economic Development Corporation. I'm filling in for our director Abby today as she has another commitment. But thank you for joining our webinar. Today's Friday, April 24th. Good to hear the date out loud sometimes and remember where we are in the world. So today we have Abby from the Erie County Health Department to give us another update from boots on the ground, behind the scenes. Then we'll hear from Luann Cook, who represents the Lieutenant Governor's Office, and one of our local business people, Kula Hoty Lynch, who will be sharing her perspective today. So just some housekeeping items before we get started. We do have a Q&A function. If you're on your computer or mobile device, you can see those little chat bubbles. That's where we'll be taking questions. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can. We will be sharing the slides and all the links and phone numbers and everything that we mentioned today. And we are recording this webinar as well. So if someone from your company or someone you know couldn't make it, you can share it that way. So again, there's our agenda. And I will just hand it off now well, actually, sorry, I'll go first. Okay, so a few updates since we spoke last week. Congress has approved another stimulus package. This is now the fourth act that's passed through Congress. It's called the Paycheck Protection Program and Healthcare Enhancement Act. So that is includes an expansion of that PPP program that we've been talking about. One of the SBA grant and loan programs that many of you either applied for or tried to apply for. This act adds another $320 billion to that program. So the information there is, if you missed out and you're still interested, you need to be talking to your banker. Again, since we last met, you probably know that schools will remain on distance learning the rest of this school year, and that will give them time to plan for what next school year looks like. I'll skip my third point and mention the voting deadline. If you haven't requested your absentee ballot yet, you should do so today. And all that information is available at the Erie County Board of Elections website. So then for an update from our office, many of you may know about our entrepreneur support program called RISE. We did announce this week a local grant called the Small Business Innovation Grant. So I want to give you guys all the information on that. I'm gonna go to our website so you know where to find it. Are you guys seeing my website? Okay, thank you. Okay, so for the Small Business Innovation Grant information, you'll just need to go to eriecountyedc.org/grant. It's all here. This grant is really intended to help kind of businesses in these categories: food and beverage, retail, consumer services, tourism, art, and entertainment. It's not limited to those categories, but that's primarily who it would be best for. If you click here, you'll get the overview. And this describes what I'd like to point out today is just the grant is really intended to help support you with your innovations and strategic pivots. So it's not necessarily traditional relief to necessarily cover rent and utilities, but to help you make the pivots that you need to make. We've heard from a lot of you that you've had to take everything online and it's been a large expense, or you've had to switch to mobile options. So that's kind of what we're hoping to reach with this grant. And then the application is also on that website. I'll pull that up for you. I recommend downloading it, saving it on your computer, and completing it there. So that's the second box, the application. It's very brief. You just describe your business, the impacts on your business, what your pivot is, how you'll measure success, and then any other information you'd like to apply. You just email this directly to us at rise@eriecountyedc.org, and that's it. So this is my cell phone number here. Again, it's on that application. If you have any questions about what we're looking for, just give me a call and let me know. That's it from my end. So now I will turn it over to Abby from the Health Department, and we'll move on with our agenda.
All right, if you unshare your screen so I can share mine. All right. All right, so I'm just going to talk to you, give a really quick update today about where we are with the current COVID-19 outbreak in Erie County. So again, this is just a snapshot from our dashboard, which you can find at coviderieohio.com. And that's updated at least twice a day. And so it has the most updated numbers. And so currently, as of this morning, we have a total of 50 cases in Erie County. 42 of those are laboratory confirmed cases, so folks that were tested. And then 8 of those are probable cases. And the definition of the probable case then is going to be somebody who has a confirmed exposure to somebody who received a laboratory test and tested positive, and who's also showing symptoms. We know that the virus is spread very, very easily. And so if they're showing symptoms and they've been exposed to it, then they most likely have it. And we treat probable cases the exact same way that we treat confirmed cases in terms of contact tracing. And so we identify all of their close contacts, household contacts, people that they have worked in very close proximity to, and we put those folks on a quarantine. That's a mandatory legal quarantine. And quarantine, if you are identified as a person that is a close contact, you'll be called by somebody from the health department, and they will talk you through what quarantine means and what that's going to be required of you. But essentially, it's just stay home for 14 days. We will issue an official letter with a quarantine order, so that if you need to notify employers or anybody else, that they will have a letter from us identifying that they are officially on quarantine as of whatever the date is. And we will also be in contact with the person who is on quarantine every single day. So we have nursing staff that's calling all of those individuals who are on quarantine and following up with them every day. So just collecting, hey, did you take your temperature? Do you have a temperature today? Do you have a cough, shortness of breath, fever, that sort of thing. And then once a person is released from quarantine, they will also receive another letter from us that certifies that they've been released from quarantine. So as an employer, just know that there will be that official documentation. So if you have somebody who says, hey, I'm quarantined, if it's legit, if it's real, they will have a letter from us saying that they're on quarantine. And then, also if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and or have them reach out to us, and we can sort of figure out what is needed. To date, we've had 115 people who have been issued quarantine orders in Erie County. 75 of those folks have successfully completed their quarantine and have been released from quarantine, and 40 of those individuals are still currently being monitored by our agency. So they're still within that 14-day period where they're still being monitored. We have had a total of 12 hospitalizations in Erie County and 3 deaths, and then these are on the bottom here, the numbers from the state of Ohio. And then I just wanted to speak briefly about reopening businesses. I know that we are expecting an order from the governor on Monday. So on April 27th, we are expecting to hear a much more detailed plan. As of now, there's just been a lot of hinting and talking about what's to come. But I just want to make sure everyone understands and knows, although we don't know exactly what is going to be in that order, we know that it's not going to be a light switch. We know that it's not going to happen immediately, and we should expect that the reopening of businesses is going to come in stages. And so certainly don't, start, planning your big blowout sale or grand reopening or whatever it is for May 1st, because we don't know exactly which businesses are going to be allowed to open at that point. and in what capacity they're going to be allowed to open. And so just be prepared for that. We are working at the health department in creating a plan algorithm for businesses, local businesses, that's going to be tailored to each individual business. And so we will reach out to you. We will provide that information to you. There's not going to be any guessing required. We're going to provide local businesses with the information that they need to get up and running in a safe way and in a way which is compliant with the governor's order. So again, just of course, we're all being very patient, but continue to please be patient and, you know, be aware that we may still realistically be in this for quite some time. And so, but we will be there to provide any information and answer questions, of course. And then, of course, as always, the website, if you want to visit this website, again, it's updated multiple times a day. So you're going to get the most up-to-date information, coviderieohio.com. And that has our local numbers. And then if you have any specific questions about anything related to COVID-19, you can call our COVID-19 Information Center, and that is staffed from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week. So you can call and talk to a real person if you call that number. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Abby. Okay, so next I'd like to invite Lou Cook from the Lieutenant Governor's Office, just to give us her perspective and what she's hearing from her office, from Columbus, and then a few other important state updates and key dates for today. So Lou, I'll unmute.
There's days I don't know, and I'm sure you don't know either, even what day it is. But happy Friday, and I want to thank Abby and Sarah for inviting me for these updates. So we'll kind of do a little bit of a review. I know that you've probably already, the state rep and the state senator may have touched on some of this, but quickly, I just kind of wanted to go over that. And Sarah, if you want to do, yep, there you go. Again, there's some of these business resources for you. Is a small business relief office. It is operated out of the Development Service Agency, which is Director Mahalik. And as you know, there's 950 small businesses that fuel our economy here in Ohio. Also, want to continue to invite people to post their jobs on this job website. It has been, I mean, I had an employer tell me he had over 800 applications for a job that he posted. So this is getting a lot of traffic. We are going to be putting a time on the postings of 2 weeks, just simply so that we can keep them current and up to date. But knowing that if you have a job posting out there, you will get an email asking you if it's still current or what the information is on it. So that's that. Next slide. And then again, we've had some success on the dispute resolution. There is the website to go for that. And I think one of the big wins was, you know, business like a tunnel car wash that can absolutely, you know, you can run your car through without any touching of any, you know, people, and you know, you stay in your car and you get your car washed. So if you feel you have a business that, you know, could be deemed to be opened and you have a game plan on that, that's the website you go to for that. Again, together@governor.gov is an email address that you can, you know, you can apply to help your fellow Ohioans. And so that's the website there that you just provide your name and your contact information, and I think your city, state. And always the coronavirus.gov. Also, I want to make sure you are aware that this is really good news. We just got this information yesterday. Many of you are aware of the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. It's PUA. Acronym for the federal program that will cover the people that were not covered under the unemployment benefits in the first go round. These would be more like sole proprietorships and stuff. It opens today. And it is going to be a pre-registration. And you just go to unemployment.ohio.gov. Oh, good. Thanks, Sarah. She's got the information on there. So you can go and get pre-approved for it. It's probably going to be mid-May before these things start sending, before we start sending checks out. But please take the opportunity to go out there and get that in. This program also provides an additional $600 a week through July 25th, and it goes back to March 29th. So this has been a much awaited assistance plan, and we finally have it in place here in Ohio. It's going to be ready to roll soon. And there's your phone number. So, and real quickly, and I know Abby touched on quite a bit of this stuff, just to give you a little bit of a background, on March 1, there were 506 million people employed in the state of Ohio. And statewide, we had a 4% unemployment rate, and some of the counties experienced much less than that. And then we all know 15 days later, boom, what happened and how many have been laid off. And because of the early actions by the governor, lieutenant governor, our state hasn't suffered like some of our bordering states that you see, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana, but we are still on a very, very difficult road back to recovery. And the lieutenant governor stated yesterday on a call that even though the virus creates healthcare issues, so does the unemployment situation create, healthcare risk, depression, suicide, overdose, you name it, domestic violence. So he's putting together a plan. He's been charged to put together the plan to get people back to work and get people going again. So, and we also have a track record within the state of Ohio of several successful businesses deemed essential that have been operating the full capacity, and they kind of are setting the bar on this for these good practices. So again, Abby had mentioned, and this is what I understand, and who knows, these things could change by Monday when it does get announced, but it is going to be a segmented phase, and there will be guidelines for each segment of business. So some of the examples of that, the phasing is going to be phase 1 is going to be more the controlled business environment, atmosphere, companies that will be able to do the proper spacing, and they have common areas, and they'll be able to disinfect and continue to keep clean their most used areas in their businesses. Phase 2 is going to come with companies that have more of a mix of people coming and going out of their companies, more of a irregular basis of people coming out, would be customers, say, out of state, salespeople from out of state, and again, still using the safe distancing and the disinfecting. And then phase 3 will be the larger crowd situation, the sporting events, as they continue to come in. Excuse me. I am so sorry, that quacking noise was my phone. So anyhow, what we're looking at for those who can work, also to continue to work at home in your safe environment, that people that have the businesses that are going to be open with people in them, they want to make sure that the safety standards are going to be met, and that there will be somebody there that kind of watch over those safety standards. But we know we're Ohioans, and we can do this, we can get this. So also, I think Abby may have mentioned that May 1 is not a mandatory day. You can open as you feel comfortable to do that. And again, there's much more emphasis on the what we're going to do than who. And the lieutenant governor mentioned that we'll be moving away from this essential, non-essential situation. So just to let you know that the lieutenant governor is in charge of the of the economic side of the state and the openings, and he has vowed to do all he can to help businesses get healthy. And if you're not successful, the state's not going to be successful. Excuse me. And then always, if you have time during the day, please watch the Ohio, excuse me, the Ohio channel every day at 2. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. You can just find that. You can Google search the Ohio channel. You can search on YouTube. Very easy to access. So now we will talk to Kula. Kula wears many hats, listed there on your screen. Real estate manager, attorney, small business owner herself. So we just wanted to kind of get a peer-to-peer perspective from Kula and some of her tips on how to get through this time and be ready for the next segment. So Kula, if you just want to introduce yourself and take it away, and then I can ask you some questions as we go.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. It's kind of strange because I know there's 74 people on this, but I don't know who you are. So just a little background on myself. I'm corporate counsel for my family company, which is Hoty Enterprises. If you're not familiar with our company, we are a second-generation real estate firm. Our holdings are primarily, I like to call them Lake Erie Shores and Islands area, northern Ohio. Our focus is shopping centers and office buildings. I handle all the purchase and sales of our real estate, our leasing. I also handle our company human resources. I monitor our marketing, and I handle all our construction contracts as well. We also have a few operating businesses, which would include Venetian and Sunrise Marinas here in Sandusky. Also Vine and Olive, which is a specialty retail and quick service food store. My husband teases that working is my hobby. So a couple years ago, I opened the local Once Upon a Child franchise. It's a national franchise that specializes in selling and buying gently used kids clothing and equipment. It's my second franchise that I've owned. I also had owned Plato's Closet for a few years before I sold my interest in that. So this has been a really interesting few weeks for me as I've had to temporarily close my Once Upon a Child business. We've been trying to manage our marinas, which are still deemed essential, and also Vine and Olive. So those have stayed open, albeit kind of in a limited way. Our office is working for the most part remotely. I've had to work with over 100 tenants, some of who are open, but seeing sales down 50 to 70%. I have some that have had to close their doors like I had to. I don't know if some of them are going to open back up. I know I have one tenant that has already permanently closed and will not be reopening right now.
So from that perspective, just managing so many tenants, one question we get a lot is how should a small business approach a conversation with their landlord about rent assistance?
Well, I think I would approach it almost the same way this works for either whether you're talking to your landlord or if you own a building, maybe you're talking to your bank about your mortgage. I tell people it's always in my best interest to keep you healthy as a tenant. Believe me, it costs me a lot more money to go find a new tenant than it does to work with you in trying to keep your business strong. So, I have a lot of tenants I'm talking to on a weekly basis. I think it's important to communicate. And that's really great because it's helping me keep a pulse on what's kind of happening in the community. But as a landlord, I'm asking a lot of questions that I think you need to be prepared for. Like, have you applied for the payment protection program loan? Have you applied for any other SBA loans? Do you anticipate being approved for those loans? What other steps have you taken? Have you talked to your utility companies about some forbearance of payments? Have you talked to your suppliers? Have you looked at some grant money? I'm looking for as much security as you are, because if you're not paying rent, I still have to pay my mortgage, or at least my bank would like me to pay my mortgage. So once I get that information, if I know that you applied for the loan and your loan is imminent, if you're honest with me about your operations and how much you're struggling, I can help design a plan that's going to work for you. What I don't want to do, is come up with a plan that works for April, but that doesn't work for May, June, or July. I think we're all waiting what's going to happen on Monday when the state kind of sets forth their reopening plan. But, a lot of us are guessing at this point. So, we've deferred April rent for a lot of our tenants. And even though they can open May 1st, fingers crossed, they haven't been making money for 6 weeks. So, can they realistically pay rent in May? Will they have the cash flow to pay rent in June? I mean, we really don't know. So, the more information I have from you, the more I can plan for my own cash flow. If I'm expecting a check and it doesn't come, then I'm kind of scratching my head. I'm scrambling. I'm trying to talk to my bank to figure out what I'm going to do about my mortgage, or real estate taxes are coming up in June for landlords. So I'm not going to be in a position to help you if you're not communicating with me. And, again, like I said, we don't really know if it's going to be business as usual for many months. But, if we have a plan, we can work the plan and adjust the plan. For the most part, what we've been doing as a company is doing some kind of rent deferral system. So, maybe deferring April and May rent and then asking the tenant to commit to paying that back over maybe a 6-month or 12-month period, depending, kind of on a prorated basis. But there's a lot of other options out there depending on your situation and maybe your landlord situation, which would include maybe not paying rent for 1 month and then tacking on an extra month at the end of the lease term. And I know some banks are doing that with mortgage payments. So again, I think it's, whether you're paying rent or whether you're paying a mortgage, it's kind of the same principles.
Great. Thank you for that advice. And we had someone chat in. Thank you for all that you do. We're a very happy tenant of yours.
Oh, thank you.
So, you mentioned that the communication helps you so much to be able to plan for your own cash flow. Can you talk a little bit about that planning for cash flow? Any other tips for financial planning and management during this time?
Sure. I think it was kind of interesting, anytime during a financial crisis, most companies go into preservation of cash mode, and I think we've seen that happen over the past several weeks. I've gotten a lot of blanket letters from national tenants, kind of like the big guys. I'm not going to name names, but, I think you probably can figure out who some of those are. They're publicly traded companies. I know how much cash they have because, they're publicly traded. I can see it. And they've just basically said, we're not paying rent. That doesn't make me happy, but, I understand, I appreciate what they're doing. They're trying to make themselves and continue to be healthy. And I imagine that their banks probably got the same letter as well. So I think, for cash flow purposes, be bold and ask for help. As a small business, how does that kind of convert to saving cash? Again, there's SBA loans that are available. Interest costs are super low right now. It would be imprudent not to try to get a loan, or to apply for some kind of line of credit moving forward. I think talking with your utility companies and other suppliers, will they accept payment plans, deferment plans? If there's some kind of collateral that you can put up to help free up some payment obligations right now. I think there's a lot of companies that have a lot of receivables out there, so people that owe you money, can you negotiate a plan with them? Maybe instead of having payment due out 30 days, can you put them on a weekly plan? Hey, pay me what you can every week. That way you have cash flow every week instead of waiting 30 days to find out that they can't pay you the full amount. And then maybe you're having to wait 40 or 60 days to get cash. So again, communicating with them, coming up with a plan. Maybe you need to consider offering a discount if they can pay right now, or going to a COD process in the future. And I think this is really another time to be talking to your banks. We've refinanced 7 properties in the past 3 weeks, and some of these properties are ones I've collected 0 rent on in April. So I know that's going to help us as a company stay strong because, I've been able to, reduce my rates, reduce my payments to the bank, and that's helped quite a lot. One thing that I think is kind of maybe sometimes an elephant in the room, but, it's where to cut your operating fat as well. We've had I think in 2008, a lot of companies went really lean, and they spent the past couple of years building as the economy has grown, and we're very heavy in payroll right now. So look at how lean you're running. And I'm not suggesting that you need to, fire employees or terminate people, but, one strategy for conserving some cash in the short term would be asking, staff to maybe take a reduced pay for a few weeks. And then once your PPP loan comes through, or once your SBA, funds come through, or once you can grab a line of credit, you can make up that pay to them, assuming that you're doing well. So, I think you have to kind of get creative. What is it that you can do to kind of conserve cash?
Great, thank you. So next question is, anything that you yourself are doing or would recommend businesses to do to start prepare for reopening, even though we don't know exactly when it may be?
Well, and I think that's a tough one. I mean, in our office too, we've just been speculating, is there going to be a mad rush out the door of people on May 1st? Are they going to tiptoe out the door? Is it going to be business as usual? I mean, really, nobody knows. We don't know what the next week holds, the next month, the next year. Once Upon a Child is a gently used kids store. I literally have no idea if someone who is on unemployment is going to come in and say, you know what, I'm so happy you're open. I can only afford a $1.50 t-shirt, and, I'm going to shop your store. Or if someone's going to say, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not buying anything that's gently used in this environment. I don't know what's going to happen with that. At our marinas, we're in the middle of launch. People usually make their last dock payment for the year at launch. Am I going to get calls from people that say, hey, I know I paid 3/4 of my dock rate, but I'm unemployed and can't make the last payment, So I think a large part of reacting to opening is listening to your customers and your employees and their expectations. So that's like my biggest recommendation. At Hoty Enterprises, it's kind of funny. Most of our staff is working remotely, and I actually got a list of demands, which is kind of interesting, from our employees for when they come back, and what their expectations are as to cleanliness. And again, I know the state's going to come out with some things, but I'm listening to my employees because I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to be productive, as we move forward. So I'm planning. I'm turning all kinds of possibilities in my head. I'm creating policy, which I think is huge. I'm communicating those policies with my staff and with my customers. I'm setting expectations, and I'm also making it very, very clear that everything is subject to change right now, because again, we're still waiting for guidance from the state. We don't know how customers are going to react. And this is a time when you have to be very, very reactionary. Doing business as you've always done it is not going to cut it moving forward.
Great, thank you. Similar to what we heard from the Chef's Garden last week, it's back to the original, listening to your customers, prioritizing that, and really drilling down on those needs. Okay, I encourage everyone to keep chatting in questions. I'm trying to manage between the chat and the Q&A, so if you can send them through that Q&A feature, that would be helpful. Next question, if you'd like to speculate at all on some of the lasting impacts or how the business landscape might change.
Well, obviously it's going to change. We've been hearing that from every corner of every type of business. And, but I think, knowledge is power right now. when the governor a few weeks ago announced the shutdown, my brother came in my office here. I work with my brother. And, the first question I said to him is, I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because, a little panic sets in, a little like, where do we go from here? And it was kind of interesting because he just kind of got this smirk on his face. And he said to me, he says, I spent the last 10 years since the crash of '08 planning for this day. And I just kind of was like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, I knew this was coming and I have planned for it. I have little bit by little bit, adjusted our business model to make sure that we can react to what's happening today. And it's very true. And, I can tell you right now, he's spending about 80% of his day. He's working every day. He's spending 80% of his day communicating and learning. He's doing just what we're kind of doing here. Talking to bankers, to our investors, to friendly competitors. That's been a huge help to us. We're talking to suppliers, other real estate experts. I'm talking to attorneys. We're reading articles. We're soaking up every little bit of information that we can so we can learn how to move forward. And then once we have that, we're going to adapt, just like we did in '08, which was actually more detrimental to the real estate industry, which is really what our business is. And we take that knowledge and we're ready to change how we do things. What worked before is not necessarily going to work now. My message, like I said, to my staff, to my retail staff, to my marina staff, has been the same for weeks. We're adapting. I want you to keep communicating with me. I am talking to my managers every single day, multiple times a day. Let me know what your issues are. What are customers saying? What are patterns? What's changing? At our marinas, we have customers that are coming in already with their kids, and it's like nothing has changed. But other people are very concerned. They don't want to walk down a dock without there being 6 feet. And how do you do that? So we're listening to everything that people are saying, and we're going to adapt to that. So I think there's some quick practical takes on adapting, and what it means for your business. And I think, again, every business is different, so you kind of have to think about this. But I've laughed with a couple of attorneys. Every lease I write for the next 5 years, I know is going to change. Every lease is going to have a provision in it about what happens if the government closes you down. Right now there's what's called a force majeure clause in a lot of leases, but I haven't seen one yet in I think I have 170 tenants. I haven't seen one that actually applies in this instance. So I know that's going to get rewritten. I know a lot of us thought we had and have been paying for business interruption insurance, and we have found out that that really doesn't mean anything in the instance of a pandemic. So, moving forward, when you purchase insurance, how are you going to protect yourself? How are you going to take everything that you've learned now and protect yourself for the future? And how are you going to change your business practices? It was kind of interesting. I saw a tweet a week or so ago from somebody on Twitter. He had a little blue check mark, famous person, and he said, I just ordered a TV on Best Buy for my mother-in-law. They dropped it off curbside. Why have I ever ordered from Amazon? This was so easy. They could put Amazon out of business. And it just really struck me, because it was like, a lot of people have gone to curbside, or they've changed their business practices to adapt quickly. And it's like, wow, this is really working. This is something that's good for me. So what is it that we're learning from what some other companies are doing, or what you've been forced to do, and how you can use that to propel yourself forward? So again, while you've been forced into it, maybe it's a new source of revenue for you. I think there's going to be so much change, and it's really what you learn and how you adapt is going to foreshadow your success in the future.
Absolutely. So this is my last question. So I would just mention to participants, again, to use the Q&A if you have any questions for myself, Lou Cook from the Lieutenant Governor's Office, Abby from the Health Department, or for Kula, who we're talking to now. So my last question is, and people may not know, you're also the board president of the Erie County Chamber of Commerce. So how can we support each other in this area, support our neighbors? What does it really mean to buy local? Just your insight there.
Well, first, I think, we've kind of talked a lot about communicating, and I think reaching out, sharing stories and ideas are key. I think this is not a time to be proud. This is a time to be honest and let people know if you're struggling, because there's resources out there. There's ways to help, whether it be through academic programs or maybe some grants that are out there. But reach out and ask for help. So I think, communicating and being a community is key. We hear a lot about buying local, and I'm a huge proponent of that. But I think we also have to remember that, local can be a franchisee who lives here locally, who uses the same garbage service as you do, or the same landscaper. Every business is part of the community in some way. So I like to kind of think of, if you're in the four corners of this county, or, our 4-county area, to me, you are a local business. I want you to succeed because you're employing, my neighbors or my friends. So I think that's a really large part of it, because again, I think we're going to struggle a little bit. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it, with really no summer tourism here. It's going to be difficult for a lot of people. So.
Any other comments you'd like to share?
No, I think that's about it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kula, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Again, one thing I forgot to mention when I explained that RISE grant at the beginning of the program is the deadline to apply is next Wednesday, the 29th. So again, call me if you have any questions. We will share these slides and all the links that Luann shared from the Lieutenant Governor's office. And we will keep you all informed with our next briefing and our next webinar. So if there's no other questions, I think that's it for today. And thank you so much to our panelists and everyone for joining.